Okay, so I think if the panelists are ready, the attendees are ready, we're good to begin with. Good morning to the international admissions community joining in from the US, and good evening to all my fellow colleagues here in India. I want to thank the panelists and the attendees and audience for joining us on this very important day. We've been overwhelmed by the response that we've received for attending this webinar today, and it was actually oversubscribed. So we're really happy we opened up additional spots. We're really happy and thankful for you to take your time to join us today. So today is the first webinar of our Knowledge at KPT webinar series, where we aim to have discussion and knowledge sharing between diverse stakeholders of the US higher education community, such as US institutions, colleges, and guidance counselors here in India. On that note, I would like to begin our webinar today. The topic, as you know, being COVID-19, the road ahead for Indian students and high school counselors, by introducing our wonderful panelists who have taken the time to share their expert insights with us. To begin with, we have Mrs. Neena Vermani, who's the college advisor from one of the largest and most recognized private schools here in India, the Pathways World School, Aravali. Pathways was also one of the first IB schools in North India, and Mrs. Varmani has over 20 years of college counseling experience here in India, and she's been very much part of the college counseling community and holds many leadership positions. And she's also widely acknowledged as one of the first persons to start the concept of college counseling at the high school level here in India. We also have another amazing panelist with us, which is Mr. Ajay Taide, who is the career counselor from the prestigious Doon Schools, having more than 5+ years of college counseling experience. Mr. Taide has worked at various high schools with hundreds of students, and the Doon School, where Mr. Taide is the career counselor, is widely regarded in India as one of the premier high schools, and many of its famous alumnus are leading entrepreneurs, Nobel Prize winners, scientists, etc. So special thanks to our panelists for their contribution to our webinar series. Without further ado, I'll quickly explain a few housekeeping rules and the format of our webinar, and where we will be going through. So we'll be discussing the first 30 to 40 minutes on different topics and questions such as emerging question, changing factors in student mobility, of course, the 2020 and the 2021 upcoming intakes and online classes and deferrals that everyone has questions about, online resource and learning, the impact on future admissions, and then of course a Q&A section. We'll also be having a few polls during the course of our webinar, so please be sure to look out for those. And last but not the least, as you know, Knowledge of KPT is a free webinar platform that aims to share the intellectual capital that depends on the collaboration of many high schools here in India and colleges in the US. So we request you to please take a quick 30-second survey at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, this brings me to my first question for the day. And I'm going to start off with asking Mrs. Neena Vermani and then move on to Mr. Taide. What are some of the core concerns your students and parents are having as they prepare to transition to college? What are some of the emerging questions that are coming your way? Thank you.
Good evening, good morning to everybody. I would say, let me go back to the question straight away without wasting much time. The key question emerges from the situation today, which is uncertainty. And uncertainty has led to a lot of questions. The students and parents both are not sure which way the situation would unfold come September. Students are not sure that if withholding offers, would they be allowed to travel overseas? Would they want to travel overseas? There is a complete blank to that question. So that is the first core concern that I have faced. I mean, in addition to that, I think I'll leave Ajay to respond to the second part, because, you know, before we go anywhere further, because I don't want to take away all his ideas too.
Thank you, Mrs. Varmani.
Thank you, Kunal, for having us here. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Neena ma'am.
Hi.
It's great to be here. Yes, as rightly said by ma'am, uncertainty is the word for today. This is the situation which we have never seen or we had never imagined. So naturally, parents are concerned, students are concerned. Thankfully, universities have been very positive and very communicative, very regular and consistent with their responses. they have been releasing newsletters and informations consistently, which has been positive for the classes. So for us, there are two classes, the class of 2020, which just graduated, and the class of 2021.
which
I
is
think more than the class of 2020, I saw the class of 2021 having more questions and more concerns because of the fact that the class of 2020 were already done with their admissions. So majority of them had received offers from the US university, and it was majorly whether they're going to join a semester at the university campus or they're going to have an online session. And that was the major concern from the parents. Some of the parents also expressed their concerns about their safety of the children and the health issues, how governments are going to allow travels, international travels, and if they are expected to do a semester from their place, like an online semester, will they be having same financial requirements? So these were the concerns by majority of the parents, and we've been explaining to parents as well that it takes a lot to create an online session than to have a in-person session, because the amount of technology, the amount of infrastructure and resources are involved, it takes a lot. So it's fine even if the universities are charging you same fee, but uh, as long as they're offering you quality education from the comfort of your home, that should be okay. So I think this time of the year where majority of the class, graduating class, and also the class of 2021, these two classes were interacting with us consistently, and most of our time was
yeah.
spent
So
in
yeah,
answering those
we can
questions.
kind of sum up and say the concern is definitely related to uncertainty, whether the students, what would the situation be like in September?
Yeah.
I mean, we can only speculate at this time. Universities have come up with some ideas. However, to begin with, the biggest concern today is what would it be like? And I think those are the kind of questions as we go ahead, it unfolds.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
Kunal, what would you
That
say?
That's wonderful. I mean, these are some of the questions that we'll be obviously touching base on during the course of the conversation. And yes, we have been hearing many of these questions. As you know, we've been in touch with many schools as well. So I think the points you guys have brought on are really really great. So I'm going to move on to my next question. Given the uncertainty that is taking place that you have been discussing about, what are the student and parent opinions on mobility to and outside of the US for the fall 2020 and the fall 2021 intakes? Are the students still planning, as you know, as Mr. Taide, you said the students' decisions and admissions has already been done. So are the students planning to stick to the US as their destination, or because of this situation, because of the health crisis that is taking place right now, are the students planning to shift somewhere closer to home, such as Dubai or to some other place of their liking, or some of that nature? So I'd love to start with you, Mr. Taide, if you can dwell on a few points.
Yeah, thank you, Kunal. I think the response for this question would be again in two steps. The class of 2020 had planned their applications well in advance. So they were very clear of what country is their priority, what kind of cost they're willing to spend upon that kind of education. So the class of 2020 is very much committed to the US, but I could see that the class of 2021 is a bit hesitant. They want to create Indian backup options. They're not sure how long this scenario is going to be. So they do clearly want to create an Indian backup option. In fact, some of the students called up the other day and said that we might want to look at UK or Singapore as one of the other destinations. Also, because of the rising cost, you could see that the dollar is rising every day,
Absolutely.
and because the parents of class of 2020 had already planned their finances, but the class of 2021 were majorly depending upon this year's business and
Right.
profits.
So
And I think the businesses have been impacted highly, and that's the reason I would say some of my students have started thinking about options beyond the US after this.
well, I can say from my perspective, I will at this moment focus on 2020, even though you plan well in advance, and our students do make it a point to apply and get their offers. The 2020 have received their offers, but no student, in spite of being how well planned, my students I have seen, at least in Pathways, have always got, because I encourage plan B. My policy has always been, please have your plan B ready, irrespective of what your plans are. Maybe it's an old fashioned style, but whatever. So my students in 2020, right now, I'll still focus on them, are also looking definitely to alternate destination, which I believe is the right course. The uncertainty has definitely surged the applications in India,
Right.
because if you're looking anywhere outside India, whether you are closer or a couple of miles further, really makes no difference, because
Mhm.
traveling policy will remain the same for any part of the world once you leave the country.
Right.
So this has been my line of approach to students, that if you need to look for an alternate destination, then yes, and I can see that lots of applications have suddenly come in. And here I would say thank you to the Indian institutes who have all derailed their admissions dates, and they've all extended it much later, so to accommodate these students. Otherwise, and even the entrance exams have been, delayed so that the students could apply. So I would say yes, there is a change in mobility. Students are hopeful, keeping their fingers crossed. There is it's not that they have shelved their ideas to take their offers which are with them, because that's where their dreams were.
Right.
However, the plan B is in, absolutely in. But looking at my 2021, I think it's still too early. There is a lot of speculation going on, and the idea of applying overseas and their dream colleges still exist,
Right.
keeping in mind, the plan B, which we always work with.
True.
So
True.
yes, and cost factor definitely is there. Students would look for scholarships when they are going overseas, financial aid, and that is a very big driving force with the students. Definitely, I mean, I can see that, whether this year, 2020 or 2021. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's, I think you, thanks for sharing those amazing views. And then, you really again bring home so many great perspectives. And getting back to the 2020 intakes, my next question to the panelists would be, one of the biggest questions here in India is that how are Indian students reacting to potentially taking their first semester of classes being fully online for fall 2020? As we talk about fall 2020, are students inclined to take all of their classes remotely for the fall semester, or defer to a future term when the classes will be able to begin in person? And to also add to that question as a B, how much of the cost factor would be in their decision making processes? Because as we know, Indian families are sometimes cost conscious, and it is likely institutions would be charging the normal tuition for remote learning as the same as in person. And then I'm just going to quickly make a point. Once the panelists complete their perspectives, I'm going to be launching a poll for all the universities who are participating. But yeah, Mrs. Varmani, please go ahead.
Here, I would like to share an experience, because my first student who really got onto this kind of a situation was a student who was studying in Shanghai in NYU. And he was in India in February on his holiday, and everything shut down. I know there was a panic at that point. The parents were concerned. The student didn't know what was going to happen. However, the online classes started, and I was in touch with him. He was in touch with my entire batch of 2020. The response I got from him was full of satisfaction. And here I would say kudos to the team of the universities, because the fear of losing a year, the fear of losing the information, the college, the classes was kind of restored, because the online classes really went on well. So knowing that fact, I think the students, at least I would look at it from the perspective that, and now of course, most of our classes are going online too. Our
Right.
school is completely online, no dates, no day, no subject matter has been derailed or, not reflecting back to the students. So students are having a full day classes. Students
Right.
are already doing online classes. So that is something which they are doing now. Talking about whether they would be looking forward to doing that in times to come. Well, yes, if that's the dream college, I do not see a student, deterring away just because the classes are online, because at the end of the day, if it is education that he was looking at in
Right.
the international university, so be it.
Absolutely.
However, the cost factor, well, I mean, if sometimes you have to pay for that. I mean, that's the way I would say, you do pay for your cost for the quality that you get.
Absolutely.
I can see also, let me share this with you, that a couple of the students who have come back from US universities, I was talking to them, who are also following their online classes. Students have come back from Canada, are doing their online classes. University's been very magnanimous. All their resident fee has been refunded to them. So there is no problem at that point. The students are also recognizing the support the universities have given them. And at the same time, the online classes have been there. Now, if there is an internet breakup, the students get back to the universities and they get their notes from them. So I don't think the online will be a very big deterrent.
Right.
Cost, long-term decision, I can say maybe one of that, but
Right.
not the online. No.
That's interesting. Mr. Tidy, what would the perspective of your students, and you've been in touch with many counselors in the college counseling community, what would your perspective be?
I think the way students are taught here, they're taught to develop their critical thinking. They're taught to discover themselves in college, and I think this is a moment of once in a lifetime where they're getting this opportunity to see this pandemic and think how to overcome, how to
A
solve,
situation.
how to come out of this pandemic. So the very first thought which they have in their mind is time is important, critical, so we cannot lose our time. We have a semester which is going to begin in August and September.
Right.
Most of our students are 100% committed in beginning that semester, no
Correct.
matter if it's offered online at the comfort of their home, or if some universities start in late September and call the students on campus. The fact that students are excited that they can take an online education where they can record some lectures, they can go back to those lectures, they can clear their concepts, they can also do some additional courses because they will have a lot of free time. They will still have time where they could develop another skill of theirs. They
Right.
could do another project being in their own community. So
Right.
that itself is an excitement amongst our students, and they have overcome this situation and have been mentally very prepared to join the university at the earliest possible.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting to hear. So
Only
now
thing they're looking forward to is some kind of definite answer from the university as to when the classes will start.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
quite comfortable with that idea.
so
Also covering the
How,
cost
yeah, your
factor.
question? Yeah.
Sorry, covering the cost factor, as the parents had already prepared for the finances and
Yes.
the budgets, I think they are ready and they are willing to pay how and what the universities are going to charge. They
Mhm.
trust the universities that they would review it thoroughly, properly, and then take a final decision about the fees, and will not include too many extra charges like the accommodation fees, which
Yeah.
are not going to be valid. So parents do trust the universities here, and we'll wait for the university to come out with their final decisions about the fees for the first semester.
That's really nice to hear. So now that the counselors have shared their opinions, we're going to have a quick 60-second poll that you will see upcoming any moment on your screens, and I think it's live now. And this poll is for the institutions, the universities who are joining in. For fall 2020, is your institution leaning towards online, offline, full-time online, part-time online? And we'll wait for about 30 seconds more to see what happens, and then obviously continue with the discussion. So I can see the poll numbers going up, and we're going to wait another 20 seconds for this.
We are equally curious to know this.
Yes, absolutely.
I can guess. Maybe either a mix of above or part-time online.
Right, and it's surprising. So we have 8 more seconds before we end this poll. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So 44% of the institutions who are present have said they're leaning towards full-time in person.
Okay.
About 33% have said that's the second biggest one, which are saying undecided.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is a mix of online, which is 19%,
Mm-hmm.
which is, mix of online, offline. And then the fourth, which is full-time online, is about 4%. So I think that just helps us, everyone out here, give perspectives as to, what goes on next, right?
So I think,
And
Vishal, before we go further, I was just thinking when we were thinking, just the thought process, if the people are looking at a full-time in person, the next query and would be, what about the health and the medical facilities should the student uh, experience a situation which is such that he cannot travel back and he needs to be hospitalized or quarantined? Would the universities have the facilities? What is it that they are working towards? Because that would be
right,
the next concern of parents. Because as Ajay and I, we both have experienced that our parents and students are committed to move on. They
right,
are not going to allow situations. I mean, we are all coming from a school and background where we are talking of, you know, moving forward, finding a solution, you know, have taking a realistic view of the situation and moving on. So that
right,
would be the next question we would like to ask the
right.
universities. What would be their support system for the
I think we can have a poll
student should he
towards,
travel?
future. I
That's
can
okay.
create a
I
poll
just
right
thought
now.
about it, unless Ajay has any other question at this point.
I think yes, the safety and the health, uh,
It's going to be,
safety of the children is what the most of the
yeah.
parents are curious about. What I was observing, some of the universities also said that they're going to have a 14-day or a 3 weeks quarantine period where if there is an on-campus housing facility, universities could call the students for 3 weeks, see the health of each and every one, and then have an complete like we have a boarding school here,
Yeah.
where when once everyone is on campus and once everyone stays on campus and nobody goes out, and then
And
then
things are in
it would
control.
be safe to run this school, this institution. In a similar manner, if universities are coming out with ideas of having everybody on campus and then run a program which is well spaced out and maintains all the criteria of the
Yeah,
government,
but
then
I
I'm
think
sure
not,
we can have a semester.
again, not all universities are gated communities. They
Right.
True,
are
true,
all
true.
open
That's what.
communities. So that is another thing. But my question is that should a student need support, what kind of support the universities would be able to
Yeah.
Yeah, and
give?
getting into that question, I think Mr. Nathan Jones has put up a good point in the chat box saying that colleges and universities are providing quarantine space on campus. So it'll really be interesting for them and for the college counselors to learn more. And also, there's another really good comment from Mr. Joseph Martinez who says that while planning for all full-time in person, a lot of this obviously falls on government regulations set forth by the city and the state governments as well. So really some good perspectives out there. I'll move to my next question for the day. By proactive sharing by US colleges that they would allow deferrals to spring 2021, would that likely prompt more deferrals than otherwise would have been requested?
Uh,
We're now moving into the next segment, which is future admissions. So just to gain your perspectives on that, and anyone could start. Mr. Taide, you could start. Mrs. Varmani, if you'd like to start, you could start.
well, I can say I do know of students who are looking for, taking a year off till the things settle down. Either it is uncertainty or there's a fear, or parents are, not very sure whether they could deal with the uncertainty. Students have looked at alternative. They would be happy to consider it if they get some kind of a support from the university. The only concern that they also have is that if a student has been given a scholarship,
Mhm.
what kind of status would he be in? Should he defer his application? Though I know of some universities, in another panel where we had raised a similar question, there were universities of certain parts of the world where they had said, no, the deferrals may not happen because they have the incoming batch of students coming, especially in Commonwealth countries where the universities are duty bound to take the local students.
Right.
They were quite clear that we will be very, very strict. So I really don't know what the US universities are planning on that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the students would be reaching out, but since we are here on the panel today, I thought that would be a good question. Again, probably you can try a poll on that to see
Right.
how many, what is it? Because I don't think here any government policies would be required.
Right.
It would be mostly the universities looking
Right.
at the international students and their deferral. Because then things would be, and I don't know how else can we move on, because again, if they're committed, they don't want to let go of that experience, because college and education is not all about only online learning. I mean, there is more to the holistic growth that a
Right.
student is looking at when he moves to an international arena.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that is something that,
Yeah, we can have different perspectives here. I've had people and parents coming up with various perspectives here.
yeah,
The first perspective was because of the fact that if situation remains the same for the next 3 or 4 months, you're not going to move out of your house, then there is no point taking a gap year, because you're not going to get a practical internship. You're not going to get any work experience to add value to your profile. So what's the point of taking a gap year or a deferral? Rather than that, join a semester and join the university in the same semester, take as many classes as you can, learn from the different experience which universities are building upon and creating a different of an experience. I'm sure the rest of the program, 3.5 or maybe 3.
yeah. But here I would say what we have seen also is, Kunal, that when I use the word deferral, I mean deferral to the university. The students may take up an alternate program in India.
Right.
He may take up a course in India and start studying. He's not looking at a gap year to go for internship. He's looking for an alternate place to start his education, keeping his mind that if he can move on, provided the university is able to, if the university is able to support it, fine. If there is still an uncertainty and the students don't know what it's like. But the other question that we may have for deferral is what kind of fee may entail if he wants to defer it for a year, because there is definitely this, I mean, especially those students who are really not sure, for some reason or the other. I mean, there
Right.
could be many reasons with the students. So the two
Right.
questions is what kind of fee it would entail. The other question would be what kind of um, policy the schools will have towards, the scholarship, whether it will be there or not there. But
Right.
yeah, so that's definitely a question. But if there is a clear-cut policy, the decision can be taken and moved on.
Okay.
Um,
So that's very interesting to hear. So what I'm going to do is again launch a quick poll out here for about 30 seconds. And the question on your screen would be, is your institution considering deferral as a policy for international students? And if the answer is yes, then I think we're going to be moving on to another poll in the next few minutes. And then I can see so far all 100% voting has been yes. So I think that answers our questions, for college counselors.
Very
And
good.
then I'm going to give it another 15 seconds, because there's another follow-up question to this poll which I have, which is how does deferrals impact admissions and scholarships? Because obviously I know we decided before this call that a lot of these questions are emerging. So 100% answer has come in as yes. They are the institutions who are participating are considering deferral as a policy. I'm quickly going to go on to my next poll. This is again going to be another quick 30 seconds. Is would deferral impact admissions and scholarships at your institution? I'm very interested, I think, as you asked. So
Yes,
let's ask this question.
I think this will be great to know.
Right.
But I'm so happy. Yeah, it should not.
Sorry about the technical glitch, Kunal.
No problem at all. Like we can all
No worry,
understand.
Ajay, we'll bail you out. Don't worry. I mean, I may get stuck because it can happen here as well.
Yeah, it can happen to any one of us because the data connectivity of these days. So we have about 30 seconds, and then I think I'm going to quickly end the poll because I think a lot of people have answered already. About 70%, 67% of the institutions participating are saying no, it would not have an impact. 25% are saying maybe. So I guess they must have not, they're still formulating a policy, so we can't comment on that, but it's a maybe. And then about 8% are saying yes, it would impact. So I think those answers really would really help us gain some perspectives. And also we have some great comments that are coming in into the chat box saying that,
Yes.
it's different for different institutions, of course. One semester deferral, no, but a full deferral, yes. And then scholarships would be need to renew. I think Michelle Doss from Embry-Riddle is saying that, it depends on whether or not student attends courses as well. So I'll move on to the next question because we have about 2 or 3 before we move on to the Q&A section.
Yeah.
Due to the possibility of visa delays, now, as you know, these deferrals are taking place and students are considering it, as you said. Would a student seem more open to deferring a semester or a year in order to attend a college abroad of his choice? Or do they seem to be prioritizing starting on time and thus starting at a university here in India? What would your opinions be? And anyone of y'all can start with this.
It all depends how soon the consulate opens, because we know that the first, as of a couple of weeks ago, I came to know that the first date available in the consulate here in Delhi was October. So anyway, I don't see a student getting his a flight in September and being there. So
Correct.
I really don't know. I don't think this concern is there with the students, and that is why the deferral is coming in, because most students don't, I mean, nobody has student visas with them at this time.
Right.
And unless they have a special arrangements for giving visas on time, I don't see the students moving out of the country before the end of October. I
Right.
don't know. I mean, I don't see any student moving out. So
So
my
do you-
concern definitely is what if the universities are, I mean, what is going to happen? It has to be, the answer is with the universities and the government to make sure that some kind of arrangements are made so that the students can at least be travel ready
Right.
with their documents. That's what
So,
I'm looking at.
given the visa situation here in India, as the attendees may know, and of course the panelists know out here, most of the country is in lockdown till about the end of May.
Yeah.
Do you see them then picking up an Indian option, just to start on time, or do you think it's just best to defer for them in general?
I think the fact that they have committed to one particular university,
Mm-hmm.
majority of our students have created an Indian option. They did apply to some of the major liberal arts universities in this month and last month. But let me assure you that is just a backup option. They know they have time till August to begin a university term, or some of them, like the UCs, are beginning late September. So they do have time to see, observe, and then act precautiously. So students are committing. Most of the U.S. universities have their deposit date of 1st May. So majority of our students did pay their
It's been
initial
extended to
deposit
30.
and confirm their offer. So most of the students are going ahead with their offers, and they would now wait how universities come clearly on the policies, how the semester will be conducted, and what government norms are coming forward. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. And, transitioning to, admissions, I know there's a lot of discussions, and we discussed this before the call as well, about, test optional institutions in the US. So what happens then? Like we're talking about, I know about the future 2020, the road ahead. And the road ahead is seeing a lot of institutions now becoming test optional, right? And a lot of families in India, as you know, relate the SAT to the quality of the university. How do Indian families see this into the value of the university? And how are your students viewing these test optional policies? Again, we're now segueing into another segment of our conversation. So how do your students view test optional policies, for the future 2021 intakes?
Yeah, the last one that I read was MIT going test optional. Was the
Okay.
last flash out which I read, and
Mhm.
well, my I can tell you as a counselor's perspective was then what would be the course of admission, how the admissions will be taking place, how holistic will the admissions become, what is going to be the point that would crack it up. I mean, every student in India would be definitely concerned at this point. Students
Mhm.
do look at the university quality by the scores because they do believe that, they're looking at a certain academic rigor and standards
Mhm.
when they're looking at the university. There is two types of students, I would say. Some who have sighed a relief and probably they are able to score well but are not able to crack the SATs. So for those, it's a sigh of relief. For those
Right.
who are able to get the scores, I think they are a kind of a little bit disappointed because they believe this was one way they would be at least ensuring, and it was like a litmus test for them, to tell the university that, I'm good. So unless the universities are little more clearer about, what would it entail, what is it that they will be looking at, rather the quote unquote the holistic thing, because the holistic is a very difficult kind of. I mean, where is the end? How much would a student pack up in his 12 years of schooling? And how
Correct.
does he prove his material? So that skepticism is there. But definitely, students, I would say, at middle level, at less competitive level, are definitely very, very comfortable with the idea of things being test optional because that gives them a much wider area to apply. They don't
Right.
have to go through an extra test, which
Yeah.
is, of
Okay.
course, really, really hard. But then I'm sure the students will find some way of proving their academic but students are definitely, there are two types of students, I would say. Correct.
Correct.
So also we also had some of them who could give their test in December or
Yeah,
March.
yeah, they couldn't.
Uh, they did get some good scores, and they felt like this was their opportunity to prove to the university that this is what our ability and aptitude is. But with only a few universities coming forward and becoming test optional, it's making the situation even more confusing
Okay.
because the students think that not all the universities, the top ranked universities, have come with that decision. So when they see a holistic review of the application,
Mhm.
thankfully the boys over here, they feel at an advantage because here they do a lot of activities, extracurricular, socially involving activities. But again, the challenge is with this long lockdown from March till, say, for example, July or August, they will not have any practically involving activity which really test their skills. So they are doing a lot of personal research, online research, but the thing called, say, practical internships or going and personally teaching students or doing so many other activities, they are not able to do that. So the profile will also be impacted, the profile development factor on how the universities look at how did you utilize your summer holidays. This year the intensity will be lesser, so that's why students are more confused with this test optional thing. And with not too many options to do and involve in engaging activities, they are more worried this year.
Correct.
I guess the challenge would be well spread out with our students as well, because IB being IB and the kind of rigor it entails, and it's a kind of inbuilt in our curriculum in pathways that every student has to do his internship, shadowing, extra service hours outside the school time. Yes, all that will be impacted. However, I mean, we are encouraging them that use this challenge as to come up with some novel ideas as to how best you can utilize this time. And if
Right.
nothing else, it'll make your essays that much more exciting. But talking about test optional, well, yes, I would say it has created a slight level of confusion.
Yeah.
And you know, the parents and students both want to scramble and do something about that little extra bit that they can to showcase, because I mean, everybody is looking at universities to be accepted, and especially those at the, um, you know, that are little more selective, and the students who are looking at that level, they are
Right.
going to be, I think, a little bit, at least those who've got good scores, they
Correct.
definitely are going to be a little disappointed.
And those who did not prepare for the SATs, for them it's a
Oh,
welcome
it's a blessing.
news, because then they can also apply
Apply
to
there.
majority of US universities and
But they
try
give them an
their
opportunity to start working harder in their current course. So I tell them, get better scores in your IB, and that might work. So they try to work harder there.
Fantastic, fantastic. And talking about learning and, talking about, I'm going to segue into the next section, which is online learning and resources. Because I know a lot of institutions that I'm sure you've been in touch with, we've been in touch with, the institutions themselves want to connect with students at this very important hour. And I'm talking about the road ahead prospective students. We have two more questions and then we'll open it up to Q&A. Given the transition to virtual learning, and this is my next question, given the transition to virtual learning and increased free time, how are you viewing your students who are viewing the onslaught of virtual visits by universities? I mean, would a virtual presentation by US colleges to your students concerning holistic admissions and practices under the current COVID-19 situation for an audience of prospective students and, of course, parents, as you know, they're important, be beneficial to your students? Or do you think it's just something that would be overly redundant, at this point?
Again, I think, like Ajay would say, it's a two-way. We have some students for whom it is, you know, may not be very interesting or redundant. However, I see that some students, the amount of attention you can get from the admission officer and the fact that they have this time locked in for that 1 hour, most students are seeing, and the parents are able to uh, sit through the webinars and follow it up very, very closely. They are
Right.
as much involved in the virtual, uh, relationship with the university as the student is, because in university visits on campus and talks in is normally with the whole class or with the interested few, and it is not as much involving the parents all the time. But here I have seen that yes, if the students, and we do try and encourage it too, because if the student can take the most out of it, I think this is one time where you are locked in that time zone, and you can get all your questions and answers sorted out. I think
Right.
it is definitely helpful for those who want to take the benefit out of it.
Okay.
Definitely.
Fantastic.
I think the amount of online activities and webinars which are happening, I would say they are overwhelming. And the fact that our students currently are taking online classes from morning till afternoon, and then they have dedicated sessions with either the counselors or some other specialists from the school community itself. I think they do have a very long day
Very.
already in front of their screens. So what the careers department over here has done is, what we have done is we have decided which university presentations are going to be hosted through school to them. So what we are doing is we are only hosting one webinar per week for our students, so that they don't get overwhelmed by this and they don't feel disinterested then. So
Right.
we are having one webinar which is communicated and promoted by the school's careers department. So we see the attendance, we see majority of the students are attending with their parents and they are getting benefited from it. It would be also be helpful if couple or maybe 4 or 5 of universities can come together as a group and talk about the major questions which today's community, parents and students have. So it will be helpful, it will save their time and also get them quality information and say, less screen time, I would say.
I can second that. That's exactly what we have done. We've done with our students the same thing, because they're studying from 8 o'clock till 3 o'clock. So we have designated from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock,
Mhm.
or maybe, I think they have their classes till 1:30 approximately,
Right.
then they have their lunch. Then we
Right.
have designated the time from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock every day. If there is any if there is a free slot. So the universities have had, totally pathways focused webinars with them. And yes, we do control the number of students who are attending, the parents, to make sure that everybody is. So that is one part of it. But talking about the kind of webinars and information outside the school boundaries, well, that is something we can't personally control our students. If they want to attend, it's okay.
Yeah.
But I can say that all these virtual webinars definitely are really, really very, very helpful. And they do answer a lot of questions because of the space and the time that we have with the students locked in.
Right, absolutely. And my final question for the day, I know we've discussed a lot from, the emerging questions to opinions on mobility, to online classes, to being test optional, or, virtual learning, as we just discussed right now. So if, as a college guidance counselor, if you had one piece of actionable advice to US colleges, something that you would like to see them doing in the current scenario, what would that be?
Mhm. Pretty good question, Kunal.
Thank you.
So if I have to give one piece of advice to universities, I think universities, the way school counselors collaborate, work together, interact, and share knowledge and resources, it would be advisable for the universities also to collaborate, interact, and come up with policies which are similar, and they share those information and resources at the same time. What we can see is, like, every now and then one or the other universities coming out with their newsletter stating we are going to be test optional, we might review this as a criteria for admission, we might do this. So for parents it's difficult to observe and make notes of each and every announcement. So it
Mhm.
would be great that with the help of the state government and the national government, they come together, come to one conclusion, whether this year going to be completely test optional, whether we are going to start all of us in September, or all of us are going to defer, or what we are going to do. Have more collaboration and try to have one date where you come up with information release, the way you have the admission decision dates very clearly announced. In the same manner, in this pandemic situation where there is already a lot of uncertainty and panic, come together, collaborate, and share information at a given time
Right.
where everybody could relate to it and understand and then take conscious decision.
Yeah, I would say yes. Coming to this similar kind of question, yes, Ajay has come up with a brilliant suggestion. I don't know how many universities can really come together with that idea, because I think each state has their own demographics to deal with.
Yeah.
I, for one, from the counselor's perspective, I would say that if a university, if he can open up a line of communication with the admitted student,
Mhm.
and the admitted student knows who to reach out to for his communication, for his questions, his queries. I think that is one line of communication which I would like to appeal to universities. I mean, at least take care of the students who have deposited or who are looking for admission and who have already been admitted and now has queries. Because what happens is, I have 83 students asking me 83 different questions from different universities, and I have to find out the contact person of that university to sort out these queries. It is challenging. Sometimes I'm able to do it within the time period. Sometimes I'm not, because the universities can also draw blank because they may be overwhelmed with question and answers. But if you can have country specific or zone specific admission officers who can take care of these queries coming from a particular area, at least, and the school counselor is aware of who to contact, I think that data should be shared. And the moment a student gets his admission letter, that contact must be mentioned in that. It cannot be a generic contact which says admission at university.edu and all. It doesn't work like that. So I think my personal request would be a contact should be shared with the student at the time of admit letter that he gets, or the letter of offer, because he may have so many queries and that person is the right person to respond.
Right. Absolutely.
And we keep going in circles trying to sort it out. And very often, let me tell you, the students have given up on a university because their queries were not answered, and they will go to an alternate university. And and admission officers have a very, very, very influential impact on the admissions. It does work. I can definitely say that with my experience here.
Right, absolutely. So thanks a lot for sharing your perspectives. We're now going to move into the Q&A section, and I know I'm already seeing questions out here. The first question to the panelists today is from Miss Susan Whippy from Marquette University, and Miss Susan is stating, Marquette University admitted students have the option to defer and retain scholarships to fall 2021. What is the best way to communicate this policy to your students and families? Students don't always check messages sent to them, and that is so true. Students don't check emails. So what is the best way to communicate to them? Is it to communicate to the high school counselor? And what are the other ways, or what are the other ways that we can connect to them?
I think in our school, the first point of contact would be, you should keep the counselor into CC. This is the best way I would say. Keep the counselor into CC. If the person gets it, and if you are reaching out to a particular student and the counselor is in the CC, I would make it a point to make sure that the person gets the information and response. That's the best I can do.
Yeah, I agree with ma'am. I think with every student, we have dedicated counselors here in the school. And it becomes very easy if the student is not responding, universities contact us and we share that information. A lot of them do contact us in terms of latest grade, mid-year transcripts or pre-board mark sheets and relevant admission materials. So they do contact us. But in any of such case, and also in this scenario where the pandemic has created a lot of confusion and too many emails are going from different places to universities and students, it would be great to keep us in the loop, and if we can be helpful, I think that would be great for us also and for our students.
Right. So you think keeping the counselors in the loop would be great because, students don't always check that, but you guys are always in touch with your students, I think Monday to Sunday in this very important time. So that's great. Thanks for those perspectives. We have also unmuted the mic out here for the participants. So anyone would like to, instead of chatting, just voice their over voice, share their questions. Please come forward. The panelists will be answering questions that you may have. Okay. So I think some of the some of the attendees, I think, may not want to ask questions. Let's do the other way around. We still have about 5 to 7 minutes more. I'll ask the panelists if they have any questions for the universities that they can answer right now in the chat box, or if they would like to unmute themselves and come forward. So, Mr. Taide, do you have any questions? Mrs. Imani, any questions?
I have a couple of them.
Yeah.
With so many things happening right now, where the schools are in a lockdown state, students have not been able to do too many things. They are requesting their recommendations, but they have not been able to personally meet their teachers and express what they have been doing, and also work on their applications and other aspects of, say, for example, the IB, the internal assessment submissions or discussions on the extended essay, and so many things and components of the academic curriculum. So considering the loss which we have had now, will universities extend or postpone their early application or early decision deadline? That's my first question for you.
So any universities would like to answer that, either via voice or via the chat box, about the early action, early decision, please?
But since early action and early decision is universally, I mean, I think it's more or less the same for all the universities. So I think that is something which they will have to look into it and come up with, since there has been no such dates shared.
Right. Right.
Yes, it's a good point for them to consider. I mean, if are they going to look at the deadlines shift for next year? Yeah.
Right. Right. There's another question that's coming from Mr. Brett Reichard from the University of West Georgia. And Brett would like to ask the panelists, is the low availability of international flights a factor for students who are planning to attend on campus in fall and perhaps already have their visas? Thank you.
I don't think.
No. Nobody can have a visa before. There's a gap. There's a cap of certain days before which the student cannot apply for visa. That cap of date depends on the day of travel. So I think it is something like 40 days or something like that.
120
90
days.
days. Yeah.
120 days.
Days before the date of joining, no one can apply for the visa.
Nobody.
And I think none of our students were in a position to apply for any of the visas.
No.
Most of them are international students, so they do apply for an F1 student visa.
Yeah.
So I really don't think any one of
Nobody
them.
can. Nobody can. All students apply for visas much later. I think in May or in June they apply.
And international travel has been cancelled, is not happening. Not even domestic travel is happening. So I don't think any travel or any visa process is happening in any of the countries right now. So,
Right.
yeah.
So no visas have been, yeah.
That's great. Our next question is from, and we have a few more minutes, about 3-4 minutes more. Our next question is from Mr. Nathan Jones from the University of Westminster College, Salt Lake City, Utah. And Mr. Jones is asking, if we are unable to travel to India this fall 2020, what is the best way for us to get in front of your 2021-2022 students? Anyone would like to take that?
The webinar right now, as we are doing it, I mean, that's the best way you can get in front. There's no other.
Okay. So if,
as I said before, if we can coordinate and plan this ahead and have it properly spaced out, maybe a few more universities can come together, have give prior notice. We can give prior notice to our students, see their availability and the comfort of attending this webinar. I'm sure we can have you guys coming forward and address the class of 2021 and 2022, because even the students are keen to know more about universities, and they understand that not many fairs will be happening. So all those webinars which are promoted through the careers department at Doon School, students do anticipate those webinars and events, and we'll be happy to work with you, collaborate with you, and conduct these events.
I would echo the same thing. That, I mean, if we can have group of you, I mean, that's like Ajay says, we can have group of you and we can find a way of rolling them out to the students, get the interested students to meet with the admission officer in the same virtual platform.
right.
And it will work. We can collaborate on the thought process as to the timing and the date, which has to be easily available to all of you. And we can do that bit from our office too. And we can set up a Zoom meeting with our students and the group of counselors who would like to visit.
Right.
At this moment, I can straight away say that we are not expecting anything to happen in this kind of a format as early as maybe July now.
Right.
Because right now there is a lot of, there's enough block time till middle of May, and then we close in middle of May. So I think only second week of July onwards,
Absolutely.
I see this opening up now.
Right. Right. Thank you for that. And I have one more question that's come my way from Seth Walker, Indiana University, Bloomington. Mr. Seth Walker says, wondering if school administrators are already started making plans for new post-lockdown regulations on university visits to high schools in India. For example, have there been discussions yet about limiting the size of groups on high school campuses, requiring, that's the first question. And the second one is requiring travel itineraries of international visitors to school. So Seth Walker from Indiana University, Bloomington would like to ask you these questions.
Yes, there is been, but this document has still not been rolled out to us personally. So I will not be in a position to talk about it, but definitely there is a pattern which is going to be the security and the safety rules, which is going to move out. And we'll share that with you in due course of time. You can reach out to us, but it's definitely being worked out. I can straight away say, based on the government regulation, the size of the group will depend on what the government regulations allows us, whether it will be group. I mean, I'm just randomly saying it. It could be group of 8, it could be group of 10, provided we can give that much distancing to the students and the counselor visits. How much space available? So it all really depends on that. But yes, there will be some regulation, but that will all be out. I think give us another month's time before we can roll that out. It's all being sorted out.
Right.
As far as Zoo School is concerned, I think the community being a fully residential community and student safety being the top priority, there will be limitations on gatherings such as presentations and seminars. We're not going to have many of such events. We're not even having the SATs or the ACTs also till July. So as we come out of this lockdown and as the country comes out of this pandemic, more policies will be designed, but I'm sure of the fact that there will be limited uh, presentations, physical presentations, and on-campus presentations.
Right.
And I think we'll promote more of virtual presentations till the situation
Yeah, but there'll definitely be way out. So give us I think it's all being worked out. There will be a way out. Smaller groups, I'm sure, will always be encouraged. But yes, virtual is something to be looked at. Yeah.
Absolutely. So to all the panelists, thank you for attending our first Knowledge at KPT webinar series. I hope it was really beneficial to the attendees. I can already see a few messages in the chat box. Thank you for your kind time to the panelists and of course the attendees joining us. I have also shared the email addresses of the two guidance counselors who have given us their time today. So this discussion can take forward, you can take this discussion forward with them. And we're going to be having more of these free Knowledge at KPT webinar series, to interact with guidance counselors. And I'm launching a quick poll just before we wrap up on our next topic that's going to be coming up in the future, I think in about 2 or 3 weeks time, which is, would you be interested in attending our future webinar topics, that is connecting with high school counselors in tier 2, tier 3 cities of India? And if the answer is yes, no, please do let us know. It always helps us improve on to what next we can offer in terms of our webinar series. So I'm going to leave it to that. Thank you, Mrs. Neena Varmani. Thank you, Mr. Taide, for joining us today. And we certainly look forward to keep these conversations going in the future. So I really appreciate everyone's free time.
Kunal, thank you, Neena ma'am. It was wonderful.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. And I think this has been a very good experience for us too. We could at least speak ourselves out. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
The experiences here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wish everyone a wonderful day and evening here in India. Okay, take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.